So I'm actually going to show you how to do some compositing, and we'll do this in photop.com. I already have a shortcut because I use it so often. And this is for the assignment that is called Compositing Images with Masks. So it's an extension of the adjustment layer masking that we've been doing, except we're using two pictures this time. And I already downloaded these pictures here, the red flowers and the old house picture. So I can go to File and open these up in Photop. They're already in my downloads folder, which is probably where you're going to find yours, unless you specify to put them somewhere else. If I hold Shift, I could probably open both of these at once. Yeah, so here they go. So basically, with compositing, you're blending two pictures together. And of course, there are many ways that you can do that. And just one way to do that is using the masking tools. And as a bonus, we'll also maybe do some layer blending modes as well at the end of this video. So I'm going to start by showing you guys to actually how to start from scratch. If you're starting with a brand new document, and this is not a necessity, but when I do my own compositing for my own artwork, I actually start with a brand new document. So you can do it this way, or you can just use the images like right from the files that they already are. So this is just sort of an extension. You could do this as an extra thing or not. It's not necessary. It's just the way I set up all my own personal files. So I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to choose Photo and 8 by 12 because that's like copy paper size, and that's a pretty good resolution, 300 pixels per inch, and it's a white background, and I'll create. So if this is a horizontal, like I'm actually working with two horizontal pictures here, so it might make sense in this background layer to actually rotate it. So I'm going to Image, and I'm going to transform it and just turn it 90 degrees either way. So now I'm working with a horizontal, which will fit those pictures better. So you have the ability to take your images and drag them from your background layer. You should be able to drag them into the new project window. Usually if you touch it, that layer will go in there, and I don't think it's doing it. I'm doing this on my new laptop, so I may not be doing the right thing. So in theory, you guys should be able to click and drag it and just touch the new tab, and the image will go in there. The other way you can always get images into other documents is by selecting. So I'm going to hit Control A to select all. Then I'm going to copy everything inside my selection. And when I go to my new project, I can just paste it by hitting Control V for paste. And yes, I want to allow that to paste in there. Great. And I can change the size of this later if I want to get rid of all the white borders. I'll do that right now by just going to Edit and Free Transform. And I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit so it fills the entire space. Usually holding your Shift key as you use your corners is going to keep everything in proportion. And it's fine if I crop a little bit of this picture out. It's not perfectly the same ratio as the 8 by 12. And you click the Enter button to get out of transformation mode. Now I can go and do my other functions here. So I'm going to take the old house picture, and again, I'm going to select it. So I have to do Control A to select all, Control C to copy everything inside the selection. When I click on my new project tab, I can hit Control V like Victor to paste it right on top. Now I definitely want to not have any seams or the edge of the picture showing. So this is one good reason why I'm transforming to fill the entire 8x12 document. So again, that is going to edit and free transform. And if I hold the shift key, I should be able to transform or resize this without distorting it. So holding shift with just your corner arrows keeps everything in proportion. And then if you need to move it around to position it where you want it to go, click the enter button. So now my pictures are ready to actually get blended together, and we are going to do that by adding a mask to the top layer. So that means we go down to this tool right here. It's called a raster mask. Normally your adjustment layers come with a mask. That's what we were using prior to this, but you can actually add individual masks to whatever layer you're clicked on. So we're going to add that mask to the top layer. That is the one that's going to allow us to see down to the layer underneath. Now, you can do brushing in your mask like you would if you got adjustment layers. So if I go to my brush tool and I use my black and white default colors, black is going to reveal the picture underneath and white is going to conceal. So sometimes when I do this, I don't set my brush at 100%. I might start it at a lower opacity, 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60%, depending on how much I want to brush back. And I also make sure I use a pretty large brush just for this particular picture. So let's see, 270. I could go a little bit bigger than 270. Yeah, that looks like it's a little bit small. So I'm going to hit Control Z to go back. And then my bracket tools are going to make my brush bigger. And I should be able to bring some of these flowers back here. Gradually, that's what a lower opacity brush will do. It's brushing it back at about 50%. Now, the more I brush over that, the more of the image is going to come in. And if I don't want some of this stuff up near the edge of the image, I can just toggle to white and kind of erase that. And it's kind of at 50%. Getting rid of it. So that's a composite image, basically. Now you can do the same brushing with the gradient tool, which is here. So I'm just going to undo the brushing that I did by going to edit, step backwards, until I get rid of all of my brushing. And now if I get the gradient tool, as long as my white frame is around the mask, then I know that's where my gradient tool and my brushing is going to work. It can't be over here. Just as a reminder, always check your layers palette. Make sure that frame is there. Switch to the gradient tool. Usually you want to be in the first block here where the background is blending with the foreground. And then you can choose your gradient shape. So depending on what your image is like, I have a nice horizon line here. So that's why a linear gradient, which pulls kind of in a straight line, works well. But you may have instances where you need other shapes like a circle, the reflected, or the diamond. It just depends on what you're trying to bring through when you're compositing your images. But I'm going to stay in the linear. And remember, your gradient, you just drag and draw across your frame, and then things start to blend. Now, if you don't like the way the gradient pulled, you can always click and drag it again. And what's nice about the gradient is it is a very smooth transition. The brush is going to be a little bit more challenging because you have to set your own opacities and you have to really have a steady hand for this as you're brushing. So maybe compositing with the gradient tool can be a little quicker, a little bit more precise. So try brushing, try the gradient tool, and try compositing two images together. Now, the bonus that I talked about earlier is you could also change the blending mode in one or both of your layers. So every layer that you have comes with a blending mode, which is normal. But as you go down to this menu here, you have a lot of blending modes that you can possibly choose. So let's say I choose darken, then the combinations will become different. So blending modes are based on the colors and the values that the image already has in it. So the more you practice with the blending modes, you'll start to get to know what each blending mode does. I use one called overlay a lot, which is here, but it doesn't really work that great in the case of these two pictures. But scroll through them and find one that you think makes an interesting combination. Right? We don't want the house to totally disappear, so maybe that one's not the best choice. Yeah, so luminosity is kind of interesting. Hard light has a lot of contrast to it. Linear burn is a little too dark there. Dissolve doesn't always do a lot. But actually, dissolve actually is interesting here because we're getting these little tiny pixels here coming through dissolving. So that could work here. But the more you practice with those blending modes, the more you're going to find out what each characteristic of each blending mode is. So have fun compositing. And remember in order to retain these layers, you're going to need to go to File and Save as a PSD. Now you can rename it. Maybe I'll call this House Composite. And then I'm going to put my name in it. That's good for when my students hand in their work to me. And it's fine to leave it in your downloads folder, but I actually have some class periods here. So maybe I'll just call this Photo 2, and all my Photo 2 work can go here. All right, have fun with that.